Everybody, thank you so much for coming back to yet another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Don't Look Under the Bed. Jacob Martin is back once again to review another Disney Channel original movie with me. The last time he was here on this channel we did Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire, which I'm sure you can imagine with a title like that was an interesting film to go back and revisit, and it was his first time watching that movie as well. And this time I decided to have him check out another Disney Channel Halloween horror themed kind of movie, and this time it's Don't Look Under the Bed. So we're going to hear from Jacob in just a little bit. And before I get too far into this, what I will say is my intention going into October was not to review as many Disney Channel movies as I have been, but it was just one of those things where I was scrolling through Disney Plus and I was seeing all these films that I had a nostalgic connection to, and I just figured, you know what, why not? That's one of my favorite things about this channel, is not only being able to review newer films or older films, classic films, or just big films that are popular to people, but also being able to kind of review the underrated films, the very niche films, or the films that I have a nostalgic connection to that are just kind of fun to go back and force other people to check out. So yeah, I'm excited to go ahead and talk about this movie, but I should also mention that right out of the gate, this is also one of those collabs that I love so much, because Jacob and I have a bit of a different opinion on this movie, and I'm learning more and more over time, especially with this channel, and just my love for film discussion has just slowly taught me that embracing other people's different opinions on movies and being able to discuss them in a fun way and hear people out on what they enjoyed and what they didn't like is becoming more and more fun to me every single day. And with each and every single one of these collabs that I'm doing, I'm just loving it more and more. And yeah, you know, Jacob and I share a lot of the same positives and some of the same negatives, but for the most part we have a different take on this movie, and I love that. This was a movie that I was rewatching for the first time in many years, but a film that I'd seen many times before, and this was actually Jacob's first time. So again, we're going to hear from Jacob in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about this movie. So Don't Look Under the Bed, as you can imagine, it has to do with the boogeyman, just based on that title. The movie came out in 1999 and is directed by Kenneth Johnson, who also directed in the same year Xenon, the Girl of the 21st Century, which is another Disney Channel original movie, and a few years prior he did Steel, starring Shaquille O'Neal. So do with that what you will, but yeah, this is who we're working with as a director. And yeah, this film focuses on a character named Frances, played by an actress named Erin Chambers, who is our main character. And yeah, Frances is kind of set up to be the goody two-shoes character. She's not really somebody who gets into a lot of trouble, but not too long into the film we see that everybody in the town starts having all these pranks going on for them. There are things like the whole neighborhood kind of having their alarm clocks go off 7 hours earlier. Everybody's eggs and gelatin have been stolen from their homes, and they're used for various pranks across the course of the film. Everybody wakes up and their dogs are on the roofs of their house, and yeah, there's all these weird, strange events that are beginning to occur. And not too long into the film, our main character is introduced to the character of Larry Houdini, who's played by the actor Ty Hodges. I've never really seen Ty Hodges in too much more, but yeah, he without a doubt is the standout of this film. The character Larry Houdini is the standout of this film, and I just found the character of Frances to kind of be a little bit annoying. So like I mentioned, there are these pranks and these weird things going on throughout the entire city, and for some reason she is kind of being blamed for this. And that's one thing right out of the gate that I didn't really enjoy, because I feel like it was kind of rushed. There's just this rushed explanation for her kind of being the one that all of these things are kind of focused on, that all these negative things that are happening are kind of pointing in her direction, even though she really hasn't done anything or given any indication for her to be the one who was behind any of these pranks. And of course, like you would know as the viewer, she's not. And again, I just don't really like that element of the film right out of the beginning. And at the beginning of the film, when she's introduced to this character Larry Houdini, we learn not too long into the film, as we continue to kind of see him pop up in different places with different outfits on, that he's actually an imaginary friend, and he's actually the imaginary friend of her brother, her younger brother, who actually suffered from leukemia and is now in remission. And we learn later on in the film that she actually told her younger brother that he needed to grow up because things are in a very tough situation, that he couldn't rely on an imaginary friend, and that he kind of needed to move on and get serious in his mind. And because of that, the brother ended up stop believing in the imaginary friend Larry Houdini, and now Larry Houdini is kind of slowly becoming a boogeyman. Amidst all of this happening, there's already a boogeyman out there, and I'll go ahead and jump straight into the spoilers. It turns out that this boogeyman is actually the old imaginary friend of our main character Frances, and he's out there doing all these pranks kind of to get back at her. And you know, we slowly learn this information across the course of the film. But yeah, it's really a story mainly about kind of growing up, you know what I mean, and being able to, you know, grow up but still have an imagination. That, you know, growing up doesn't necessarily mean you have to let go of the childhood things. And you know, amidst it, you have this story about, you know, a kid who let go of his imaginary friend too early, prematurely, and because of that, you know, in this mythology, the imaginary friend slowly becomes this bitter, evil creature, turns into a boogeyman, and will haunt this person. And that ends up being what happens to the character of Frances. She just let go of her imaginary friend because of the fact that her brother had leukemia. She kind of grew up a little bit earlier than she needed to, and she kind of pushed away this imaginary friend that was helping her cope with things. And you know, now this imaginary friend turned into a you know, monster. So that's essentially the basic premise of the story, and I think the premise is cool. I've always enjoyed the idea of these imaginary friends that turn into the boogeyman, the idea of a boogeyman in general, and I think everything done around the boogeyman as far as the practical effects and all that, though it has that Disney Channel cheese and charm, you know, I thought it was actually pretty good. The makeup effects on the actual boogeyman in the film are well done, especially when Larry is slowly becoming one. It's cool to kind of see him slowly becoming this monster. And I think without a doubt, the character of Larry Houdini, played by Ty Hodges, is fun. He's entertaining, he's eccentric, he's over the top. He knows what kind of film he's in. He leans into the silliness, the fun element of this character and of this story. And without a doubt, he is my favorite part, the most endearing and the most engaging part of the movie. I found Frances to kind of just be a really annoying character. Throughout the course of the film, she doesn't really believe anybody. She doesn't want to believe in anything. She doesn't really believe Larry. He's given her tons of opportunities for her to recognize who he is and that he's an imaginary friend, and it really isn't until the third act of the film that she finally is like, oh, this is really happening. There are so many times where she's like, this isn't happening, or oh no, you're not real, or oh, you're not this, and I'm like, dude, we're like an hour into this movie. I get it. Like, at first there's that idea of like, no way you're an imaginary friend, like, does anybody see this guy? But she does things like that, or doubts things throughout the course of the film so often that I couldn't help but just be like, are you stupid? At this point, you just have to buy into what's happening. Me as the audience member, I've already bought in. Why are you holding back so much? I don't get it. So that was an element about the film that definitely was just annoying to me, because it's the main character, you know what I mean? And you're supposed to see things through their eyes, but at this point, it's like, all right, the audience has bought into what's happening. I think it's time that the main character just kind of goes along for the ride without doubting things consistently. And when she's blamed for all the things that are happening in the town over the course of the film, she just kind of continued to do things that made her look a little bit more crazy, or that she's not somebody who's trustworthy. And I just feel like it just came down to the writing. The dialogue, without a doubt, is super clunky in this film and is the weakest part of this movie for me. The performances are fine, but I think without a doubt, the standout performance is Ty Hodges as Larry Houdini. Again, he knows what kind of film he's in. He leans into it. He has fun with it. It's a silly, fun ride. And I just enjoyed his character being this fun, over-the-top, imaginary friend. And I just found that Frances, our main character, just was rather annoying going back and watching it. Now, before we get into Jacob's thought, I should mention that this film is kind of supposed to be Disney Channel's attempt at a horror film, and so there are horror elements in this that I'm going to talk about on my second part of the review. But, you know, for the overall, it's not a movie that's necessarily scary, but I do appreciate that they went for this approach. And there are some moments as far as the camera angles, and like I mentioned, some of the practical effects on the boogeyman himself, that definitely lean into a really solid horror film. And I think that if this movie was done by not Disney Channel with the same premise, they could do something really, really cool. Now, before I get into the rest of my thoughts on this movie, let's go ahead and hear what my buddy Jacob had to say about this.
So you're telling me that Disney Channel, the brains behind Descendants, Zombies, and High School Musical, made a horror movie? What? What's going on, YouTube? I am Jacob, teaming up once again with Anthony A. Perez and talking about another Disney Channel movie. The last time you got me on one of these was Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire. That was a fun one. Now you give me Don't Look Under the Bed. Another Disney Channel movie I'd never seen before, but you know, I wanted to talk about more Disney Channel films. I figured, you know, in the spirit of Halloween, this could be a fun, cheesy watch. But, oh man, I was not prepared for how insane this movie was going to be. So, Don't Look Under the Bed. It was released in 1999, And this one's unique in the Disney Channel sense that this is a legit horror movie. There's no getting around the bushes here. Don't Look Under the Bed is a legit horror movie. And in fact, this movie was kind of controversial at the time it came out because there were so many complaints from parents that the film was too scary for younger kids that it in fact got pulled from the Disney Channel because it was considered too scary. Thankfully, you can watch this movie on Disney Plus to scare the next generation of kids. That's where I watched the film for the first time. Honestly, I was kind of blown away by this movie. So what happens in Don't Look Under the Bed? Well, the premise is set in the most bland town ever called Middleburg, which cracked me up so much. And the film follows this 14-year-old girl named Frances, who's a little more mature, a little more smart for her age. She skipped a grade. She should be in middle school, but she's in high school. And then some weird stuff starts happening in this town. Like a lot of really bizarre pranks happen in this small town. Like the alarm clocks are set off 3 hours earlier than they should in everyone's homes. Somehow all the dogs ended up on the roofs of everyone's homes. One of the teachers in the school got eggs thrown on his car. Graffiti is everywhere, especially in the lockers, the letter B. Among other things, there are just some weird shenanigans going on in this small town. Make things even worse, this girl Frances, who seems to have the least of the problems, is the one blamed for these pranks. And even weirder is Frances sees an invisible character by the name of Larry Houdini, and everyone thinks she's mentally crazy because it looks like she's talking to herself. So, what's going on in this town? What's going on with these weird pranks? Well, dive deeper into the plot. It turns out Larry Houdini is actually the imaginary friend of Frances's younger brother, Darwin. But it comes at a price, because when you stop believing in your imaginary friend, these imaginary friends end up becoming the boogeyman. And there is a boogeyman out there that is actually the one behind all these pranks because of how sinister they truly are, and they turn into boogeyman because they lost that touch with whoever their imaginary friend was supposed to be. So essentially, Don't Look Under the Bed is a metaphor on childhood and growing up and kind of remembering your childhood innocence along the way as you're growing up. Come to find out, we find out that Frances lost her childhood innocence earlier than expected because that younger brother almost died of leukemia or something, and she was scared to give away one of her body parts for a transplant to help save his life. The middle-aged brother ended up doing it instead, and she kind of felt guilty for not helping her younger brother out, and her early dismissal of her imaginary friend ended up turning her into this evil boogeyman, and that's why it's causing all the pranks, as we find out at the end. So this whole movie is kind of a metaphor on growing up and remembering your childhood innocence along the way and still having that fun in your life instead of being too serious and too cynical and stuff like that. It's a message that's been done in other Disney films, like in Mary Poppins and stuff like that, but here it's done in a Disney Channel movie with a lot of horror elements to it. And I was honestly very impressed by the horror elements of this film. There's some unique camera angles throughout this movie. There's a lot of Dutch shots throughout, and the camera does some really cool things and some dream sequences and stuff. The film actually does feel like a horror movie throughout, and yeah, the film does have its Disney Channel cheesy moments throughout. Some of the acting's a bit cheesy. The sets are very much low budget and made for TV. The visual effects are pretty laughable. It has all the Disney Channel cheese trappings in it, but you gotta give the filmmakers prop for doing something different and making it very entertaining, and I was quite impressed with that. It definitely feels like the guys who directed this movie were wanting to do something out of the box and show that, hey, we're doing something for the Disney Channel, but we can have fun with what we're doing and just enjoy the limitation and just make a fun movie out of it. And that's what I got with this film. We gotta talk about Larry Houdini real quick because, man, I was not expecting a character so eccentric and so wild as Larry Houdini. He could have easily been the most irritating character out of the whole movie. I was not sure of him at first, but let me tell you this. Larry Houdini is amazing. I love Larry Houdini. I was so surprised by that, honestly. How can I describe Larry Houdini for those who are not familiar with this movie? Well, Larry Houdini I would describe as what would happen if Will Smith and Ed from Good Burger had a baby, and this baby kept drinking all the endless supplies of Forrest Gump's Dr. Pepper. That is Larry Houdini. And that sounds like an annoying character on paper, especially considering how much I loathe the film Good Burger and that Ed character, but Larry Houdini is so entertaining throughout. Like, literally, just his energy is amazing. Like, I've never seen somebody go that wild before that actually does deliver on, like, how zany and campy the character is. Like, he wears the weirdest outfits. He does a lot of fun antics throughout. And his acting, yes, it is very cheesy, but there's a charm to it that you just don't see in a lot of Disney Channel films. And I loved what they do with Larry Houdini, especially the more it dives into the whole, if the kid stops believing in your imaginary friend, you turn into a boogeyman. And yeah, Larry turns into a boogeyman near the end of the film. And it got crazy as he turned into the boogeyman. There's body horror in this movie, you guys. There's like legit body horror that you'd see in like David Lynch, David Cronenberg type movies. And it's so weird, but it's so cool at the same time. This aired on the Disney Channel, and then it got banned. But this is awesome. I love movies like this. Movies that have like an extra dark edge to it, but still be entertaining for younger kids. Man, I wish Disney Channel made more movies like this. And don't get me wrong, I love me some High School Musical. That's some awesome stuff right there, but man, you don't see anything like Don't Look Under the Bed, especially in the modern days of Disney Channel when you got like that stupid crap like Descendants and stuff like that. So overall, Don't Look Under the Bed. Yes, if you're still not a fan of Disney Channel and you don't like the cheese, you don't like the goofy effects and the goofy acting, this movie's not for you. But this movie does a lot of things different. It being a horror movie for one thing, it actually does have some creepy imagery, some pretty solid practical effects that I really did like. Some of the effects in here are a little better than some of the other Disney Channel films I've seen. There's this mirror effect with Larry coming in and out of a mirror that actually did blow me away. So some of the effects in here aren't bad. I did enjoy the supporting cast in this film, like Stephen Tobolowsky, I think is how you pronounce his name, plays the father of this family. I seem to enjoy him in a lot of movies I've seen him in. He also played Ned in Groundhog Day, and he is hilarious in here. I did enjoy him as the kooky father. I did enjoy a lot of the characters throughout. I did enjoy like the underlying themes of this film mixed in a horror environment. Sneaking in body horror was crazy, and yeah, I'm gonna say it. This is one of my favorite Disney Channel original movies. It is so weird. It is so crazy that there's actually a lot of horror elements in this movie. Obviously, I wasn't like freaked out or scared by this movie, but it definitely did its job, I think, for its target audience, and I'm sure that kids that probably saw this back in 1999, I'm sure it was a good gateway to horror for them. I'm not sure how influential this movie was for a lot of young kids that grew up on the Disney Channel, as this is my first time watch with the film, but I highly enjoyed this film. I wish more and more people talked about it. It's definitely one of the better Disney Channel films I've seen. I wish it became a Halloween staple, because if you're familiar with me, I do not care for Hocus Pocus. It's like the most overrated Halloween movie of all time. I've never been a Hocus Pocus fan. If only this movie was the Halloween staple, because this movie I had a lot of fun with. Larry Houdini, the horror elements, the fact that it mixes, an entertaining tone that's pretty campy at times while also having some frightening moments. It made for a fun watch, and I had a great time with Don't Look Under the Bed. So what am I going to rate this film? Actually, I'm going to rate Don't Look Under the Bed a 4 out of 5 stars. And on my 100-point scale, it's getting a 72 out of 100. This is actually a really rock-solid Disney Channel original film, and it's one of their better ones. So, thank you, Anthony A. Perez, for having me on board for one of your videos. I actually enjoyed this Disney Channel film a lot more than the last one. Yeah, I did like Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire, but I really dug Don't Look Under the Bed. If you've never seen this film, check it out on Disney Plus if you have the streaming service. If you're not familiar with who I am, I too have a YouTube channel. I go by my name, Jacob Martin. I do movie reviews, I do TV reviews, I also do ranking videos, and other fun stuff on my channel. So if you enjoy what you saw, I'm sure Anthony A. Perez will leave a link to my channel in the description down below. So if you want to check out some other content, check that link in the description below, and hopefully you'll find stuff to enjoy over there as well. So with all that said, I'll hand it back over to Perez and let him finish his review of this crazy little Disney Channel film. I had a lot of fun with this one, so back to you, Anthony.
A big thanks to Jacob for being in another video. Again, as I said earlier, I love videos like this, being able to hear your opinion, and the fact that I gave you this Disney Channel original movie from my childhood that you were able to watch and just kind of enjoy and just kind of see for the first time and just have fun with it, even though you knew there was the cheesy elements and all that jazz. And the fact that you enjoyed it more than how,
Do you speak any English?
the fact that you enjoyed it more than Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire, I love that, man. I love that you were able to enjoy this film. I love that there was something there for you, because I send these movies to people sometimes for these collabs, and in most cases I send it to them knowing that they're not going to love the films or enjoy it. And to hear you say not that you enjoyed it only, but that you had so much to say about it, there's so many positives and the things that stood out to you. As I was watching your review before I filmed mine, I go, yeah, I do agree with him a little bit there, and more than anything, I had a smile on my face just knowing that you were able to enjoy this movie. Even if I was able to go back and watch it and not enjoy it as much, I loved hearing your thoughts. So a big thanks to Jacob for being in this video. Like I mentioned, as usual, you can find the link to his channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love, let him know I sent you, and again, I'm super happy to have you in a video, man. We'll definitely do more of these collabs soon enough. So I've talked about the premise. You've heard Jacob talk all about the premise. We've talked about the spoilers. So now at this point, I'm just going to talk about what I really enjoyed about this film and what I really did not enjoy about this film. Again, the biggest positives that I can give this film are the practical effects and the character of Larry Houdini. I found his character to be the most engaging throughout the course of the film, and again, he's just the one that I feel knows what movie he's in the most. There were some elements about this film that reminded me of certain episodes of old Goosebumps episodes, and I liked that. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was fun. I thought it leaned into this silly kind of horror kind of idea, and again, the boogeyman element and the kind of mythology around the idea of imaginary friends becoming boogeymen, I thought were pretty solid. Yeah, going back and rewatching this is a cheesy, over-the-top time that I didn't really thoroughly enjoy. I found myself a little bit bored watching it at times. There was elements about it that I enjoyed, but it was more on a visual level, even though one thing that I should also say is that some of the cinematography and the camera quality, watching it on my pretty decently sized 4K HD television today, was pretty weak. Some of the imagery and some of the camera shots were just so fuzzy, and it's just like, man, you don't really think about that when you were watching it back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I remember this movie playing for multiple Halloweens. You know, it was just kind of one of those movies that Disney reran, you know, when they would do marathons of old Disney Channel original movies that were Halloween based, and this was one of them. And I had a lot of fun watching this movie when I was younger, but revisiting it today was not nearly as good as I remember it. And, you know, that just goes to show that sometimes when you grow up, certain things just don't age as well with you. But I also found it really fun that Jacob was able to watch this movie for the first time and fairly enjoy it. So, yeah, you know, I do think there are some solid camera angles and some camera shots in this movie. I thought that there's some great acting from specifically Larry Houdini's character, or the actor who plays him, Ty Hodges. And I found that a lot of the practical effects were pretty solid. But the movie on it overall is cheesy. The digital effects are definitely super dated. And it's not the cheesy Disney Channel movie kind of thing for me that I was able to kind of just enjoy and be entertained by, with like something like Halloween Town, which for me is just kind of fun, whimsical, silly movies that I found a little bit more entertaining. Whereas for this, outside of the character of Larry Houdini, there isn't really any of the characters that I found myself attached to. There wasn't really an emotional core. The only thing that I would say, if anything, there was some sort of emotional core, was the fact that the younger brother had, you know, leukemia, and that there was some story there about growing up, and, you know, the story of a brother and sister kind of love, and all that jazz that was mixed in there. The story of kind of moving on from your imagination from when you were a kid and maybe becoming overly serious as you grow up. You know, it's a message we've seen in other Disney Channel movies and just Disney movies in general. So there's something there to tug on the heartstrings. But by the end of the movie, I just found myself a little bit bored, and there was times where I was definitely struggling to keep my eyes open. Like, I didn't ever fell asleep, and I never was like, you know, kind of coming in and out of sleep. But as I was watching it, I felt my eyes getting heavy, and then I really didn't care about what was happening. Even though I already knew the story, I just found myself a little bit bored revisiting it. So yeah, guys, that's going to be my thoughts on this video. I know this is a bit of a long one, but I appreciate you guys for watching if you did. Again, you can find the link to Jacob's channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love. Let him know I sent you. And as usual, you guys can hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.